Hey, what's good, fam? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna be talking to you guys about UFC Fight Night, Gilbert Burns versus Michael Mallot in UFC Winnipeg. Just want to caution, I might be sweating during this video because it's fucking hot as balls here in New York, which is insane. What's even more insane is this fight card the UFC cooked up for UFC Winnipeg. As Winnipegians, I would be insulted for them bringing this to my hometown. That's how bad this fight card is, and that's kind of saying a lot for 2026, where a lot of these fight cards on paper have been a little concerning, but I will give, credit where credit's due. A lot of those fight cards have delivered, because there's been a lot of exciting, scraps and finishes. So we'll see what happens here, but man, is Winnipeg in for a treat. So with that being said, let's dive in. I'm gonna give you guys my full card breakdown, predictions, and picks, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So let's go to the first fight of the night. We got Siraj versus Yannis. We got Siraj. This dude is pretty well rounded. He is athletic, Canadian. I want to say the most important factors here for this matchup is the fact that, in my opinion, is that he is Canadian, so he's fighting pretty much at home. And the fact that he trains at a TriStar gym, which I give a lot of merit. Like, there are certain gyms in the world or in certain places where if they train at that gym, they're getting good looks, they're getting good training partners, and they have good coaches, which for us, a hobby, I think is like one of the best in the game. And he's fighting a guy in Yannis who, has looked good on the regional scene, and he doesn't really have too much other than like some finishing upside. So I'm gonna go with Siraj here. I'm not overthinking it. He is going to be the Canadian, so he's gonna have the crowd to his favor. I think his well-rounded game is going to end up putting him in good positions to control Yannis and ultimately get a decision win here. I don't know if he'll be able to finish Yannis. There is a possibility he does submit him. Submission could be a cheeky bet here, but I'm gonna go with Siraj. I think that he's gonna come in with the better game plan coming out of TriStar Gym. I don't know if Faraz Zahabi will be in his corner, but he will have the crowd backing him, and them Canadian judges, if this comes down to a close decision, he's definitely going to get the nod. But yeah, give me Siraj, potential prospect, stepping up in front of his hometown fans, kicking off the fight card. And then we have John Castaneda versus Mark Vologdin. Every time I see this guy's picture on the UFC website or most places, this dude has the face of like a 10-year-old, and the body is, I don't know what they're feeding him in Russia, but this dude needs to get on a diet because he does have the build. If he cuts down and eats right, he could possibly get jacked and cut up, but he's definitely gonna look better come fight night. But he's fighting a guy in John Castaneda who, this dude is a veteran at this point. He's a grinder. He has good hands. He has good wrestling. He's tough, and he's going to have the experience edge here in this fight. Mark Vologdin, I think most people know him as having the greatest fight in Dana White Contender Series history, and I do agree. The fight was back and forth. There was some wild exchanges. He ultimately ended up losing that fight, but still got signed to the UFC. That's how, that's how impressive the fight was. But I'm going to go with John Castaneda here to get it done over Mark Vologdin. I know there's some people on Mark Vologdin here. I just think that John Castaneda's experience, his wrestling edge here, I think Mark probably is the better of the two on the feet. He does have very good boxing. I will give him that. I just think he is not defensively sound when it comes to defending strikes. I think John Castaneda is going to be able to exploit that, mix in the grappling and the wrestling and just use his experience to edge out a win here. I will say by decision. Mark has shown that he is durable. So I don't see him putting him out or finishing it inside the distance. But I'm going to go with John Castaneda here to get it done over the Russian striker in what's going to be a good fight. I think this will be an interesting matchup. And now let's move on to the next fight. We got Aldrich versus Jamey-Lyn Horth. Man, did the matchmakers really cook for this one? Aldrich, veteran. This girl does land. Her striking is okay, but she does bring some pretty good volume. She is durable, and she will have the experience edge here against a girl in Jamey-Lyn Horth. However, this girl does not have any finishing upside. Aldrich has I don't want to say pillow hands, but there's a reason why people know her as a girl who lands volume. Jamey-Lyn Horth, on the other hand, she does carry power in her hands. She will be the Canadian in this fight. She will be the pretty much like the hometown girl or hometown fighter fighting in Canada. And she does have youth on her side here against a girl in Aldrich, who is the veteran in this one. And this is kind of a vet versus prospect matchup. I think the fact that they're fighting in Canada, Jamey-Lyn Horth is probably going to land the more damaging shots, or at least appear that way to the judges. Aldrich might, rack up some volume, but ultimately not leading to enough to sway the judges. I think Jamey-Lyn Horth gets it done here via decision. She could end up getting a finish here. If she does land something of consequence, Horth's power and maybe the fact that, she's fighting in Canada, she wants to go out there and get a finish. There's a possibility for, a TKO win here in the second or third round. But I'm going to ultimately go with Jamey-Lyn Horth to get it done via decision against Aldrich. All right. Then we got a fight I'm pretty excited about. So when I looked at this card, I was like, okay, this is when I tune in, right? Or when I turn on Paramount. But we got Mitch Raposo versus Allan Nascimento. There is a lot of people, or at least I've seen online, people backing Mitch Raposo here and bringing down the line. And I mean, there is a case for it, but I'm going to go with Allan Nascimento here. I think Allan Nascimento is the way better grappler here. I don't think Mitch Raposo brings enough on the feet to sway me into choosing him. Mitch is athletic. He does have a slick striking and has a pretty decent wrestling, and he does put on a good pace, and he's a solid fighter overall. And Allan Nascimento, on the other hand, this dude I think is he is fighting at flyweight, so I want to say one of the top grapplers in this division. I think he has far superior jiu-jitsu than Mitch Raposo, and he is on a pretty bit of a tear. I think he is on a 4-fight win streak in the UFC. I know he beat Halfalfillo, he beat Cody Durden. I just want to see if I know anyone else that he has beat. Cody Durden is last victory, then Halfalfillo, Carlos Hernandez, and then Jake Hadley. So he is on a 4-fight win streak here. I think that Allan Nascimento drags it into deep waters and finishes Mitch Raposo on the mat using his superior jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to go with Allan Nascimento here to get it done via submission against Mitch Raposo. Then moving up the card, we got Melissa Croden versus Daria Zhelezniakova. Melissa Croden, this girl is gritty. I have seen her fight. She is a tough girl. She does have pretty decent size. You know, these girls are both 5'9", fighting at bantamweight. She is well rounded. She does have heart, like I said, toughness. The fact that she's fighting at home, I think, is going to give her an edge in this fight. And just, yeah, her durability. And all that being said, all I'm saying is that, you know, she's tough. She has durability. You know, she has heart. All those things were kind of just swaying me to the other side of Daria Zhelezniakova. I think Daria Zhelezniakova, you know, this girl is a Russian grappler with pressure. She has good submissions. You know, this is going to be a tough scrap. I think in terms of skill, I think Daria is the better fighter. I just don't know if Melissa's grittiness, the home edge, like the Canadian home edge, is going to be enough to win her this fight. Do I see Daria finishing Melissa? I don't think so. So I'm gonna go with Melissa Croden here. I'm gonna go with her to win via decision, and I think this might actually end up being a split decision, just because, you know, Daria is the more skillful of the two fighters. I just think Melissa Croden is gonna be able to do enough to have the judges pointed in her favor. So give me Melissa Croden to get it done over Daria. Then we got Tanner Boser versus Gohkan Saricam. I always think of Gohkan Saki when I hear Gohkan, but Tanner Boser, this dude has been in the UFC before. I believe he's coming back now. I saw his last fight was not in the UFC, but he's fought better level of competition than Gohkan, given that he's been in the UFC before. He's put on some pretty good, you know, Apex fights. But I'm going to go with Gohkan here. I think I'm going to go with the potential, like, prospect. I know he is debuting, but Saricam is athletic. You know, he does have knockout power. And I think he'll be able to, you know, land bombs on Tanner Boser and ultimately possibly get a finish with that Turkish power of his. I think Tanner Boser is just a little bit, you know, past his prime, and at this point, I'd rather go with Gohkan than take a guy in Tanner Boser here. I know Tanner is the Canadian fighting at home here, but I'm gonna go with Gohkan. Yeah, I mean, Tanner is 34 years old. He is coming off a win, KO, and then prior to that won a decision, and then lost by KO to Ian Cutelaba, and then lost a split decision against Rodrigo Nascimento, two UFC guys. So I'm gonna go with the Turkish dude in Gohkan to get it done here in his debut. You know, he has some hype coming into this fight, and I think that power is going to carry here and get it done against the guy in Tanner Boser. So give me Gohkan as the official prediction. Then we got Julien Leblanc versus Robert Valentin. All right, so hear me out here. I think I'm going to go with Robert Valentin as my official prediction against Julien Leblanc. I know there are some decent amount of people backing Leblanc. You know, him being the Canadian, being well-rounded, you know, he does have solid striking. You know, he is going to have the crowd to his advantage. But I think Valentin is the more skillful of the two. I went back and saw Julien Leblanc, and I did not think this guy was good. I think Robert Valentin has fought 3 UFC level guys in Ryan Loder, Torres Finney, and Ateba Gautier. The Ryan Loder one was pretty bad. Like, he shouldn't have been losing to Ryan Loder. But Torres Finney just controlled him for 15 minutes, did not land any. I think there were maybe a total of 5 strikes attempted from Torres in that whole fight. And I know Robert lost that fight, but he did not receive any damage from Torres Finney. You know, if Robert would have just landed a little more, he probably could have won that fight if we're going by damage as like the main criteria, or one of the main criterias over control. Because when it comes to control, it really matters what you do with it. Like, are you advancing into threatening with submissions? Are you doing damage from top position? So And then he lost to Ateba Gautier, who, come on, like it's Ateba Gautier is gonna knock out most people, right? At this weight class. So I'm gonna go with Valentin here. I think he hasn't been able to showcase his skills, and I think he will against Leblanc. You know, this isn't a guy in Ateba Gautier who's gonna come out and just like knock you out. It isn't a guy in Torres Finney who's just gonna like ragdoll you and hold you up against the fence for 15 minutes. You know, I will accept the Ryan Loader one is bad, but aside from that, I think Robert has gotten better. He has learned from those losses, and I think he goes out here and beats a guy in Julien Leblanc. So give me Robert Valentin to get it done here. I'm in between whether by decision or Robert Valentin could get a knockout win here, you know, in maybe the second or third round. But, you know, Robert Valentin, I think, is the guy with the finishing upside. You know, he is dangerous, finishing ability. He is explosive. He's just inconsistent and had some tough matchups. So I'm going to go with Robert Valentin to get it done against Julien Leblanc. And then kicking off the main card, we got Denis Buzukja versus Marcio Barbosa. Off the rip, I'm going to go with Marcio Barbosa to knock out Denis Buzukja. Barbosa has been on a crazy run. This dude has terrifying early power. He has 4 straight round 1 stoppages. 9 of his last 11 wins have been in the first round. This dude is explosive, 1 punch power. He does have the submission threat as well. I think just his main weakness is his cardio is untested. You know, if Denis Buzukja is able to put him into deep waters, you know, make it out of the first round, possibly, you know, late second, going into the third round. Who knows how this guy's Barbosa's gas tank is going to look like. So I'd be a little bit careful with here. I think Barbosa round 1 KO is like, you know, live and a good bet. But if Denis Buzukja is able to weather the early storm here, usually these guys with like pretty crazy power tend to gas quickly. Just because they carry like a lot of not a lot of muscle, but like they're a lot denser or muscle. I don't know. So I just know that in the past, bigger guys have tended to gas out quicker. One of the examples I think of who actually did kind of gas out his lot, like he looked a lot more worn out going into the third round, was Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa, you see this dude is massive, you know, jacked. And he did even get tired in the fight against Roman Kopylov that I do remember. So it's something to be said with those guys with crazy power. They do tend to gas as the fight goes longer. So I'd be careful here, but I think Barbosa should get it done here in the first round against a guy in Denis Buzukja. Buzukja, this dude is gritty. You know, he does have heart, has toughness, and like I said in my past fight, like, am I really gonna go with a guy who's more tough and durable than the more skillful fighter? The only reason I went Melissa Croden was just because, you know, she has the home advantage where Denis Buzukja doesn't. And he is 1-3 in the UFC. He is coming off a long layoff, which I think is also something else to consider. I think Barbosa is gonna go out there and style on him. So give me Barbosa to win this fight via KO in round 1. So yeah, I think though, you know, if Denis Buzukja is able to establish, you know, the wrestling early, take down Barbosa, control him, wear on him a little bit, this fight can get interesting, and in those later rounds, you know, Denis can be live. But I'm gonna go with Barbosa. Then we got Thiago Moises versus Gage Young. I've low-key always like kind of liked Thiago Moises. I think he's had some pretty tough matchups, but I don't know if it's just the fact that, you know, from what I've seen, he has like pretty good jiu-jitsu. But I've liked Thiago Moises, and I'm gonna go with Thiago Moises here to get it done over Gage Young. Thiago Moises is fighting now. He changed gyms. He's at Fighting Nerds, and what I was in my head thinking, it's like, Moises, this dude is a veteran, you know, BJJ black belt, slick submissions, and he has pretty decent wrestling. Like, he is able to take guys down. He is going to have the experience edge here against a guy like Gage Young. In terms of weaknesses, I think it's just his mileage, the miles on Thiago Moises, the fact that he's been knocked out before. But I think there's more upside to him. There's more reasons or more things I've just mentioned that he has an edge over Gage Young. Gage Young, this dude is a 25-year-old prospect. He is athletic. He had a strong Dana White Contender Series performance and UFC debut. But I think this is a pretty big step up in competition for him. He is going to be the younger of the two fighters, but I think he's still green, man. This is a classic, like, crafty, like, savvy veteran versus, a young, athletic, still green fighter, So I'm going to go with Thiago Moises here to get it done over Gage Young. There's a chance, Thiago Moises pulls off a submission here. I'm going to go with Thiago Moises by decision, but the submission is live. I think Thiago Moises weathers the early storm here, takes it to the mat, takes Gage Young down, racks up control time, threatens with submissions, possibly gets a submission. If not, wins this fight. So give me Thiago Moises as the official pick here. Then we got Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Karine Silva. Jasmine. This girl's pretty good. I like Jasmine. She is the she is the Canadian in the fight. She's going to have the crowd in her favor. Karine Silva. This girl is an aggressive, grappler. She does have decent submissions. She has a pretty decent submission game. She is dangerous from everywhere. She just struggles with elite wrestlers, which is what Jasmine is. She is a wrestling machine. She has heavy top pressure. She has improved her striking, and she has good cardio and good control time. She puts on the pace. She is going to control you, and I think Karine is going to struggle with that, so that's why I'm going with Jasmine. I'm pretty confident in this pick. I just didn't know Jasmine was 37 years old. 37 years old is crazy. I thought she was younger than that, but even with that, I think she was on a win streak. It did come to an end against Amanda Fierro, but Amanda Fierro is like an elite women's flyweight. So no shame or anything to hold against Jasmine for that. And I do think she is the better fighter than Karine Silva. I think she is the more skillful girl. She does have the wrestling edge. She's going to have the home crowd. So give me Jasmine Davicius to get it done via decision in this one. I think she controls the clinch and, gets Karine Silva down on the mat for 15 minutes and just grinds out a win here. So give me Jasmine for the win against Karine Silva. Then we got Mandel Nalo versus Jai Herbert. Woo, damn. Some of the fights we've got here, right? Mandel Nalo. I think two or three reasons I'm picking him. He fights out of TriStar Gym. So I know this guy, regardless, is going to come in with a good game plan. He is a Dana White Contender Series 2025 standout with 5 straight first round stoppages. This dude has a crazy highlight reel KO video out there somewhere. He is complete. He does have power. He has the finishing upside. This is going to be his UFC debut. So that's the only thing that you can, take with caution. Jai Herbert is a experienced, I want to say veteran at this point in the UFC. He is pretty durable. He has only been, I think, knocked out once or twice, I believe. He was knocked out by Ilia Topuria, even though he had rocked Ilia Topuria like crazy with a head kick, and then unfortunately got knocked out. But his last fight, he lost a split decision against Chris Padilla. Before that, won by decision against Rolando Bedoya. then lost a decision to Saricam, and then before that it was a draw to Ludovic Klein, and then won a decision by Kyle Nelson. So all that being said, is all of those have been decisions. So this guy is pretty durable. I think Mandel Nalo is in a Ilia Topuria to go in there and put the lights out on Jai Herbert, but he does have pretty insane power, man. This fight is going to be at lightweight. I'm going to go with Mandel Nalo to get it done. I think via decision. I think the KO is live, but I think Jai Herbert's, savviness, his durability, his good striking, his experience, all that just amounts to me almost picking him in this fight. I just think Mandel Nalo just carries too much power in his hands. He's been on a great streak. He is carrying momentum in here in his debut. This is a guy that the UFC is trying to bring up. As a Canadian, this is the featured fight, I believe. Yeah, the featured fight of the night. I think it all points to Mandel Nalo getting it done. So give me Nalo to get it done by decision, possibly KO here against Jai Herbert. I just think Nalo's power, his finishing streak, I think it's just enough to overwhelm Herbert early. And especially in front of the Canadian fans, get out there and get a statement win for himself. So give me Mandel Nalo. Then we go to the co-main of the card. We got Kyler Phillips versus Charles Jourdain. Jourdain has been on a pretty rough path. I've seen this guy fight before, and I went back, saw some tape, and I think he's coming to his own, especially at bantamweight, because I do believe he did fight at featherweight. But he's looking jacked. He's looking dialed in. I saw a photo that the UFC posted of Charles Jourdain. This dude is shredded, cut up. He's looking good at bantamweight. So, and on top of that, Jourdain, he does have good striking. He does have a good submission game. He's really good. He's really good at those front chokes with the guillotine. He is the Canadian fighter here. The fact that he's a dynamic striker, he has the submissions just in case, Kyler Phillips shoots. He is explosive, athletic, has dropped down to bantamweight and looked pretty good at bantamweight. All this just, points me to go with Charles Jourdain. Kyler Phillips, this dude is an explosive striker. He does have crisp boxing, decent takedowns, good wrestler, good scrambles, and he has never been finished. But yeah, I think Kyler Phillips, his main weakness is his gas tank and his cardio. He usually kind of wilts as the fight goes longer. But yeah, he does have good fight IQ. And he has proven wins over a guy like Song Yadong, Ronnie Barcelos, Pedro Munoz. Those are all very good wins, I will say, for this level of competition. But yeah, he is coming off a win. He is coming off a loss to Vinicius Lock Dog Oliveira, and I think Charles Jourdain is going to come out here and try to get a statement win over a guy in Kyler Phillips. I think he's going to have to weather the storm early just because Kyler Phillips is going to look good in there in the first round. But I think Charles Jourdain takes over late and gets a decision win over a guy in Kyler Phillips. The only thing about Charles Jourdain, he doesn't have too much finishing upside. But I think it'll be enough to, I think Charles Jourdain outvolumes Kyler Phillips, especially in the later rounds. It's going to be a close fight. I do think this is going to be close. This might even be a split decision, but Charles Jourdain being the hometown guy, the fact that, he does have the submission threat here. If Kyler Phillips ends up, shooting or trying to take Jourdain down, I think Jourdain edges a close one. So give me Charles Jourdain as the official pick here. And then we got the main event of the evening. We have Gilbert Dorino Burns versus Mike Mallot. Man, they're really feeding Gilbert Burns to all the rising prospects, huh? Like, damn. First Morales. Who else did he lose to? I don't think he fought Carlos Prates. I've been watching Gilbert Burns for years, man. I love Gilbert Burns. This dude is like, at one point was one of my favorite fighters. I love the fact that, he had the jiu-jitsu background, of course, but, he is on a 4-fight losing streak. He lost by KO to Morales. Before that, Sean Brady. Before that, Jack Della Maddalena. And then before that, Bilal Muhammad. So, he has fucking, murder's row of losses here. But Gilbert Burns, this dude is a former title challenger, elite BJJ black belt, multiple ADCC medals. And, I needed to throw that in there. Olympic level wrestling too. But unfortunately, man, I don't see him getting it done here against Mike Mallot. Mike Mallot, he is the Canadian fighting at home. And I have seen improvements in Mike Mallot. I think that Charles Radke fight really did change the tide for me. Because going and losing to Neil Magny when you are winning the fight, this dude gave up in that fight. Was a horrible showing for him, and that took off all the momentum, literally put him back to like square one. He had to rebuild, but the rebuilding has looked good in Mike Mallot. He has gotten a lot better. He is more patient. He does carry power in his hands, and unfortunately, I think Mike Mallot goes in here and possibly knocks out Gilbert Burns, but I think he definitely wins this fight. Gilbert Burns is 39 years. He's almost 40 years old, man. I really hope he doesn't go out like this. I hope they give him, a fair matchup, and they give him the going away that a guy like Michael Chiesa and Cub Swanson got, because Gilbert Burns has put on some spectacular performances. I think that fight against Khamzat Chimaev is going to go down in like the history books. So, hats off to Gilbert Burns for such a great career. He fought for the title against Kamaru Usman, came up a little bit short, but he has put on some very impressive performances and has been a staple of the welterweight division. So this is just me giving, Gilbert his flowers. But yeah, Mike Mallot, rising Canadian star. This dude is athletic. He is a little bit on the older side, though. He is 34 years old. But he does have slick striking, great grappling. He's just a great overall, well-rounded fighter. He does have a lot of still hype to his name, even though he lost to Neil Magny. Canada is backing this dude. And then, you recent wins over guys like Radke, Kevin Holland, Trevin Giles. He does have a good frame here for welterweight. This dude is 6'1". I think he's still developing. He's still improving his skills, which is what I like. Like every time we get Mike Mallot out there, we see some improvements to his game. And then so this is a tough matchup for Gilbert Burns. I think he does have an experience edge here, but I think Mike Mallot's youth, his length, his freshness, not having taken up so much or absorbed so much damage that Gilbert Burns has, is going to favor him in this fight. And I think Mallot is going to be patient here. He's not going to come in here rushing anything, and then possibly get it done in the later rounds. Hopefully he doesn't gas, because if he gasses, Gilbert Burns is going to take him down, lock in body triangle, and get that sub. But I don't see that happening. So give me Mike Mallot to win this fight as my official prediction. And I'll say probably, late stoppage, maybe third or fourth round. So, those are my picks. Just to recap, I'm going to go with Siraj to get it done over Yannis to open up the card. I'm going to go with John Castaneda, Jamey-Lyn Horth. Going to go with Allan Nascimento, Melissa Croden, Gohkan Saricam, I'm going to go with Robert Valentin to get it done over Julien Leblanc. Then I'm going to go with Marcio Barbosa over Dennis Buzukja, Thiago Moises, Jasmine Jasudavicius, Mandel Nalo, Charles Jourdain, and Mike Proper Mallot in the main event. So there you guys have it. Those are my official picks and predictions for this card. On paper, this card, some would say, is abysmal, but I hope this fight card delivers. I hope the UFC Winnipeg fans get, some finishes and a pretty good fight card in their hometown. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your picks and predictions in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys.